Welcome back to Relationship Rescue, the show that helps you break patterns, build confidence, and set boundaries before saying yes to love. Today's guest is someone I admire, Dr. Wendy Walsh. She's an award winning psychologist, best selling author, and one of the world's leading voices on relationships, attachment, and the science of love. In this episode, we're diving deep into the emotional struggles that so many high achieving women and men face in their 30s. Why you're doing everything right and still attracting the wrong partners. What slow burn love really looks like. And how to stop dating like it's a game and start dating with emotional strategy. We also talk about attachment styles, biology, modern dating myths, and why boundaries are the new sexy. If you've ever felt like dating in your 30s is a full-time job or wondered why you're thriving in every area except your love life, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Dr. Wendy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
I'm happy to join you.
Oh my God. I love your work. I follow your work. I read your books, all three of them.
Wow,
And
thank you. I'm
yes.
working on a fourth right now.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Oh, I'm not going to spoil it, but I can't wait.
Well, I'll spoil it. It's the title of it is based on my most viral video, which is called "Men Don't Fall in Love Through Sex," and that's the title of the book.
I saw that video.
Yeah.
I saw that video. We're going to talk about that and much more, but I'm going to start like what got you started in this work? There was a personal moment that you actually had to go through with love and relationship to be a relationship expert?
So probably my own trauma. I was sitting in a therapist's office, pregnant, unprepared for the hormonal surge that will come with pregnancy that for some women feels like postpartum depression times 10. Instead of having happy hormones, I had sad hormones all the way through my pregnancy. And, I always tell women when they have amplified feelings during any hormonal phase of their life, whether it's PMS, perimenopause, menopause, those aren't new feelings that have been created. They're feelings that are now amplified, so you get to access them, to explore them. So it sent me to therapy, and there I was crying away. And in not a great relationship, pregnant with the person that I was not in a great relationship with. And I realized that there was a common denominator in every one of my past relationships, and it was me. I had chosen them. And that was a big light bulb for me. And to understand, then I had to go deep into my childhood and understand my own attachment patterns and figure out why I wanted to reward myself with pain instead of care and love. And so I'm an educator, I'm a communicator. And as I went through my own therapeutic process and eventually went back to graduate school, that therapist encouraged me to go back to graduate school. So I got a master's and PhD in psychology. And every time I take a class, I'd be like, every woman should know this. They shouldn't save this information for a 50-minute session with a PhD. Every woman should know this. And as a trained journalist, I was always good at translating sometimes complicated information into accessible language. And so I began writing books and blogging and getting on social media and sharing the knowledge with the world.
And it's so important now, is needed more than ever. More
Yeah.
than ever. So one of the things, you were pregnant and during the pregnancy, you realized that and went through all your relationship trauma, which is so unusual. I wonder why you were sad all the time. And the other thing, the hormonal, but I feel like these days it's so important to talk about relationship because in old fashioned, we were just like, taught that just do cultural, societal, just do what you have to told. And then that's it. We didn't know much about it. But now we know more and more and more. And we realize that, wait a minute, that's not right. Doesn't feel right. And that itself such a eye-opening, realization for a woman.
Are you saying that doing what culture says is right may not be right for the individual?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I came from a culture, to tell you a little bit about my background, my marriage was arranged in a very young age.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was like not my decision, but being with a man that was abusive physically and emotionally. So how do you deal with that, right? There's some time that you say to yourself, okay, I know what is wrong, But I am here and I'm staying not because I know it's not wrong. It's just because right now I can't leave because I came to this country with not knowing the language, not having family, not friend. So for me, it was kind of like take your time and then premeditate on how you're gonna leave versus like accept that what it is. And at such a young age, I didn't know it was wrong.
Mm.
But now that a lot of our listeners are age of 30 and 35, you do have that freedom, but yet they still going after people that are
Oh,
like,
it's a new equality trap. Not really full freedom.
absolutely. So let's talk about that. I know you have a book that calls the boyfriend test, the girlfriend test, and what is those means?
So, the boyfriend test was the first book I wrote, and it was really a book about boundaries. The subtitle was The Boyfriend Test: How to Evaluate His Potential Before You Lose Your Heart. Because my issue was moving too quickly and falling in love and missing all the red flags on love's race course. So, it's a basic book from zero to the first 3 months of a relationship that says this is typical, this is safe, this is normal. If this happens, get out. Right. So it's told through, nice little quizzes, et cetera, like the first date test, the 90-day probation period test. Has he done this? Right. The second book, because my publisher, it was a bestseller, and my publisher came back to me and said, do you have a follow-up book? I thought, well, maybe it's time for women to look at themselves in a deeper way. So I came up with a book called The Girlfriend Test: How Dateable Are You Really? And I interviewed 100 recently married men and asked them, why'd you marry her? And why didn't you call the rest of us back?
Mm,
I heard some very astounding things. For instance,
okay.
difficult for me to hear this. The number one thing I heard over and over is that we were too independent. And originally, that like this whole boundary went up. What do you mean too independent? We work so hard for our education and careers. But you know what? A relationship is an exchange of care. And it may not be financial, or it may be, but men want to be needed. We need to open space for them to come in and save the day in some way. And I think a lot of women think, well, I'll just show him that I'm not needy, that I'm independent, and he'll like me because it'll be easy. When actually bitches get commitments because they're very clear about what their needs are, and the right man steps up to meet those needs.
Wendy, I'm so glad you said that. I say this all the time, and that was for me because I grew up in a culture that men always protect and support and provide for women. But coming over here in this country for me was shocking culture to know
Oh,
that.
American men are so lazy.
Yeah, it was very shocking. It's very shocking. And then as I went to this field of becoming a relationship coach, like you said, that's one of the things that men always say that I feel like a man if I know that I can provide and protect my woman. But a lot of women, on the other hand, think that, like you said, oh, I have to be independent to make it easy life for him and things like that. But that's not the case.
Right,
That they
right.
always
No,
misunderstand it. So,
we
what are some?
value what we get to work for, not have to work for, get to work for. It's a privilege. We value what we get to sacrifice for.
Okay, what else they tell you?
Uh, the biggest one that I remember for sure was that women were just being too independent, but also women were very, you know, the guys would use the word behaving like men. And what they meant was, and really this is what my fourth book is about, is that, adopting a male model of anything isn't female freedom. And so
Mm.
many women, with the advent of the birth control, feel that sex is a far less risk hobby than it used to be in the past. And in some ways it is. And as a result, they're sowing their wild oats exactly like guys. And I remember one guy saying to me when I was young and dating, he goes, I wish one of us was not a player. Like he wanted a woman who would have some boundaries with him, who would help him toe the line.
Oh, wow.
So now, once I read further into evolutionary psychology, I learned that men are naturally wired to devalue a woman who gives them sex quickly. Because back in our anthropological past, he risked being with a woman who shared her eggs with the tribe, and he risked supporting another man's genes instead of his own. All the men who are evolved today are the ones who said, where are you going? Who are you with? right? That's naturally in them. We think it was invented by patriarchy, but it's not. It's far more ancient than that. And so, as much as men will take sex, they don't fall in love through sex. And in fact, they devalue a woman who gives them sex early. What men fall in love with is trust and loyalty. And that takes time to build.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can add to that that also men value when women are more confident of themselves and know what they want, and that feminine energy that we have. And we protect that feminine energy.
Yeah, we give it names like masculine and feminine, but I don't think we should. I think it's just human energy. I think the best men out there are sometimes open and emotional and have tender moments. And when we call that feminine energy, then they get scared and go back into their shell. I think humans all have a big range of feelings, but maybe you're talking about natural caregiving and nurturing that
Nurturing.
women do very well.
Yes,
And
yes.
some men do really well too.
Right, right. So that's why, although in today's language they're using feminine and masculine energy because we see women and men
Yeah, but
based on,
it's an easy shorthand that people understand,
right.
but I worry that it will make more men stay in the closet with their feelings.
I watch your video. You talk about a lot of women at the ask for guy that has empathy.
Right, like women, the crazy thing is women want a guy who can cry, but not too much. Right? They want a guy who has feelings, but if he shows too many feelings, then that's not going to work for them. But the truth is that evolutionary psychologists will say that men just naturally, most men have less empathy than women. That's been well documented in many, many studies. And so I think the biggest problem in today's culture in general is that we expect our partner to meet every single emotional need that we have. And not too long ago, we lived in villages and tribes and cities where we had extended family around us. We had all kinds of close friends. We had a social network to depend on. And now we're expecting this dude to be our best girlfriend. And many of them can't.
That's true. That's true. I heard mine when I interviewed a lot of people, and when I do ask my listeners what are the, especially men, they call it neediness. Women are very needy. I don't want to be in a relationship because women are very needy. And that could be, like you said, we relying on men for everything else, including like being our best friend and
And
being
I would
our,
like to break down that word needy because
okay.
I think having healthy, open emotional needs and expressing them in a confident way is very sexy. I do believe that it is a language that we use to describe an anxious attachment style, right? When we get into romantic attachment style, some people have so much anxiety around attachment, meaning that they fear abandonment so much that they need someone to check in regularly, to be there regularly. But that's not about having healthy emotional needs. That's about having a bottomless pit of emotional needs that he can never ever meet. Nobody can ever meet it because they haven't done the work in therapy.
They haven't done their own work. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. They always say that. I'm going to ask you some question from our listeners about dating and attraction. Why do I only want people who don't want me?
And that a therapist would probably say, and you probably should go see a therapist to talk about this, that it has to do with your romantic attachment style, right? So love is not about finding happiness. Love is not about finding pleasure. Love is about finding the familiar. And the familiar is what happened in the first 3 years of our life as our brain tripled in size and our caregivers met our needs or didn't. And we have
Mm,
this, therapists would call it a working model of love, right? We have this roadmap, this blueprint in our mind that says,
mhm.
this is what love is. And so when people get attracted to people who can't love them back in a traditional way, meaning being caregiving and attentive and putting them on a pedestal, instead, somebody who's constantly retreating or constantly critical of them, if they're attracted to that kind of person, that's because that's what deep down they believe love is. And so changing one's attachment style is something that can be done through therapy.
To not to pick people that don't want you.
Exactly. And at the beginning, because I was one, so I can tell you, at
Me
the
too.
beginning, changing your behaviors, you literally have to learn to tolerate kindness. It feels so uncomfortable. And people rationalize it by saying, I don't know, he's just like too nice. Or maybe he's too weak. And I'm like, they're supposed to be nice. That's supposed to feel good, right? So you have to sort of practice. I went through it. I dated a bunch of nice guys, and I was like, I don't have that passion. It's not, that energy's not there. Well, that energy was my old attachment organization, right?
Mm.
Once I learned how to redirect my passion and my love and my lust toward a nice, kind person, my whole life changed.
Wow. How long should I wait before becoming exclusive?
Okay, so this is a really important question and the most important question I get on a regular basis. There's two steps in the early stages of a relationship. One
Mhm.
is exclusivity, and the second is onset of first sex. It is
Okay.
very important, and there's lots of scientific research to support this, that you must obtain, if you want a long-term committed relationship. I want to stop here for a minute and say, this is not moral teaching. You know
No,
what? You want to have an earth-shattering orgasm with somebody you don't plan to have a long-term relationship with? Knock your socks off, ladies. Have
go
fun.
for it.
Joy,
Go
I
for it.
don't care. If you're at a stage where you're looking for a long-term committed relationship, the research shows that asking for exclusivity should happen before first sex. So that order has to happen first. That's the big one
Okay.
because women enter into a sexual relationship, which turns into a situationship. Because let me tell you, dudes are not going to say, "Oh, will you be my girlfriend? Let's be exclusive." There are thousands of bridal websites and bridal magazines out there. There's not one groom's magazine. Okay. So guys are not around there looking for a commitment. It's only when it is negotiated by a high value woman do they step up to the plate. And so that exclusivity, now, too soon is a problem because you haven't developed the trust and loyalty. Too late means after sex. So I would say it takes a couple. Oh, there's also research on how long it takes a man to fall in love. And it's usually about 70 to 100 days. So that's 2.5 months onward. So therefore, you probably shouldn't be asking for exclusivity before 2.5 months, right?
Right.
Right? Because he's not fallen in love yet. He hasn't had the time.
Because I talk to a lot of people, and 3 months is after 3 months is kind of safe. That's when you kind of
There you
get
go. That sort of reflects the science.
so many people said that to me. I said that 3 months, lock that in there, get to know them first, like you said, before you jump into that
But you can
conversation.
ask earlier if you're about to enter a sexual relationship. You need to have the what are we conversation. The most pain that happens in early stage relationships are when two people have different expectations. One person
Mm.
thinks it's a hookup or a situationship, and the other person thinks it's a stepping stone to a long-term relationship. And until you have that conversation about what it is, last week I read the most interesting column in the New York Times wedding section. You know how when they take pictures of a wedding and write an article about a wedding, they
Yeah.
start with a little paragraph about how the couple met or how the couple got together. And this was a very interesting couple because they had been platonic friends. And they
Mhm.
went out to the desert in California and they were lying on their backs in the dark at night, stargazing. They went on a stargazing trip. And he had an overwhelming feeling at that moment. And he turned to her and said, "Can I kiss you?" And she very smartly said, "Are you looking for a hookup or are you looking to audition to be my husband?" And he didn't kiss her. He
Wow.
made him think, why am I doing this? What is this about? And guess what? They ended up in the New York Times wedding column together. So eventually he did kiss her for the right reason. But all she wanted was clarification. He might have said a hookup and she might have said, sure. He
Sure.
might have
Right.
said a hookup and she might have said, no, I don't want to destroy our friendship. I like having you as a friend. She just wanted clarification. And there's nothing wrong with asking for clarification before you have sex
And there's so many of us who are so scared of that.
because they're afraid he will leave. But I promise you, if you have sex too early without the conversation, he will leave. Oh, and I do want to say, some of your listeners right now are going, I know, my husband and I met, we were like a no strings attached one night stand, and we've been together 30 years. Or, my girlfriend and I, that is called anecdotal evidence. That does not support the data.
There we go. You said it's great. Are men intimidated by successful women?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Are men intimidated by successful women?
Many men are, and many men have to get over that because due to the feminization of college campuses that's been going on for 2 decades, for every man that graduates college, there are now nearly 3 women. Uh,
Mm.
in the American workforce, there are actually more women than men in the American workforce. I mean, we don't have enough women in boardrooms and having access to capital, but they're working and they're bringing home paychecks. In 25% of American households, the woman is the primary breadwinner. So if there's a bunch of guys out there with traditional gender roles stuck in their head, they're going to be limited in the kind of woman they can find.
And what would your advice would be for women how they have to feel? Because there's a lot of them feel like they can't find anybody because of
So
their
this is the problem in the women's head now.
okay.
So there's another study out of Scotland called, I think it's called the George Clooney effect. And what this sociologist, female researcher found is that the more education a woman has, the more money she makes, the more she still has a Cinderella complex and wants to marry a man older with more money and more education.
Mm.
That is such a small pool of men, and most of them are riding this free wave of sex right now, and they're not about to commit. So women need to understand that their idea of a power man might be a guy who can power a stroller. They should be looking for a good father and a good husband because, ladies, it's your turn to pay the bills.
Wow. Yeah, you're
You're
right.
one of those women because I hear
Yeah.
women say, oh, they're just all intimidated by me. You're dating the wrong guys.
Right.
I make more money than my husband. I got married in August, by the way, after 30 years.
Congratulations.
And I make more money than him. And we have lots of conversations about money. But I will say, very important, at the first early stages of dating, he paid 100% of everything until we had sex. And then we had the conversation. And that was a
Yeah,
couple
because
months ago.
I heard you on the video said ladies don't bring your wallet with you when you go out.
Never. You have to give him the opportunity to sacrifice.
A
I
little
don't
bit.
know how poor he is. You know, I have a 22-year-old daughter. She's just entering the dating world. And
Oof.
dated this guy who's got just a, part-time job. He just graduated. He's 22. He doesn't have money. So I took them out to dinner. They were my guests. And
Right.
I took my older daughter as well. So it was a foursome at the table. This kid, it was probably like their fourth or fifth date. This kid goes to the bathroom and he's gone for a really long time. And he comes back and then we finish the meal. Anyone want dessert? No. I'll have the check, please. And then he says, someday I hope to be able to pay for this whole table, but I want you to know that I went to the bar and I paid for your daughter and me.
Aw.
22 years old. His mama raised him well, but he knew how to
See,
pay.
I love
Said,
that.
I hope to someday be able to pay for the whole table.
I love that. Like just a little effort.
Yeah, he paid for her and him. And I'm like, but you're my guest. I
Yeah.
invited you. He goes, I know, but I want her to know that I'm here to take care of her.
I love that.
That's
See,
right.
all it takes a little bit effort to show that even if I can't do it now, but I know what's the
Right.
right thing.
And another time she can prepare a picnic for him.
Yeah.
She can cook at home for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I love that. I'm glad you brought that up, that story, because a lot of people think that, oh, I have to pay the whole bills, or I have to take them to these fancy restaurants, or I have to take them to these places. And it's like, no, that's not what it is.
You
It's
just
the
need to
intention,
pay and help a woman feel cared for
the
until
intention
onset of
beyond it.
birth.
Yes, yes. That
Women
how
should
you
not open her wallet until she's had sex with the guy. They're exclusive. They had that conversation. Then she's
exclusive.
had sex with the guy, and then let's have the money conversation. That's the order of events. And I remember when I first tried to have the money conversation with my now husband, we were on date number 5, and the check had come. We had not had sex yet. And I said, I think we should talk about money. And he looked up at me and goes, why? I pay. And that's it. He goes, conversation done. So it was only after we moved into greater intimacy, greater trust that I said, okay, dude, I got to start here.
Oh my God. No, you're absolutely right. Do soulmate actually exist or just a myth?
It's a myth. So this idea that if the definition of soulmate is that there's one person that you meet in your life, and that's the only person for you, excuse me, and you're meant to be together forever, is insane. Sorry, I need a sip of kombucha
Go
here.
ahead. Yeah, yeah, please.
It's probably the kombucha that's causing my throat.
All right. So, are you drinking green tea?
No, it's kombucha.
Oh, okay.
So the idea of a soulmate is kind of insane. That there's one person on the planet that you're going to run into, and all of a sudden you'll have no problems in your life. The truth is, people who learn good relationship skills are not only attracted to more people because they're more understanding, but they're also more attractive to more people. There are
Mm,
many, 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 many compatible people out there. And relationships are not about winning a lottery. They're about shaping a life. And it starts with you learning the relationship skills yourself.
mm. That is so true. Yeah, you're right. What is the difference between chemistry and compatibility?
Oh, big difference. So, generally, when we use the term chemistry, we're talking about neurohormones on the brain that create feelings of lust, passion, and romantic attraction. And those are operative very much at the beginning of the relationship, right? And so, when we meet somebody we're physically attracted to, our brain is assaulted with a cocktail of neurohormones that make us just put on rose colored glasses. We don't even see all the negative traits of them at the beginning. Compatibility has more to do with conflict style, attachment style. Those are the psychology pieces, but also the social pieces, because love is biological, it's psychological, and it's social. The social pieces are, will they fit in with your world and your family and your friends? The conflict pieces are, are they healthy enough to have healthy conflict and have good repair afterwards? And the
Mm,
attachment pieces are, is their attachment style secure enough that they can both give and receive care comfortably?
okay. Because you always hear the term saying that, like, oh, we are so we have this chemistry among us. I've seen that in the couple of dates people go to. I have this chemistry, even though he's not texting me, he's not calling me, he doesn't want to be with me, but we have this chemistry. I can feel it. I can feel the chemistry.
Well, lust. And lust doesn't sustain.
Yeah, they have to be clear. Why does love feel like drugs, and how do I stop obsessing about it?
I don't think you can stop obsessing about it. It's the best drug we have.
I
Uh,
know.
love, and they have literally put people in MRI machines and asked them to think about their lover, and they see what areas of the brain light up. And it is the same areas that happen when we do take a drug, a mood altering, exciting drug. And the interesting thing about love is it's very much like a drug in its withdrawal symptoms as well. So,
Mm,
if you were to take a drug, whether it's caffeine or alcohol or cannabis or whatever, at the beginning it feels delicious. And after a while, it doesn't seem to work so well. So, you want more and more and more of it until you build up what's called a tolerance. After a while, if you talk to somebody who's going through addiction therapy, the drug itself doesn't feel good, but the withdrawal symptoms are enormous. Going off the drug is hard. And that's the same with attachment. So at the
that's
beginning, you want to see more and more and more of your lover because you want this feeling to last. And then you get into mature companionate love, and you're like, I'm not going anywhere because it's going to hurt too much to break up.
mm. You have to get to that neutral level. I always tell my clients, don't get too high and too low. If you're in a relationship, either you're too high exciting, because it's so exciting, and I'm always happy, I'm everything, I'm on a cloud nine, or you're too devastated that it makes you more cried and makes you smile.
Mm.
Then you're in an unhealthy relationship. I guess when we get to that level of neutral, that you're kind of safe and calm and peaceful.
You know what good, secure attachment feels like? And, I didn't experience it until 5 decades into my life. It feels like peace.
Peace.
It feels like safety. There's no more roller coaster highs, no more lows. It's comfortable. Now, on the other hand, it's very important that long term committed couples who have a secure attachment continue to create novelty in their relationship. There's lots of research on that because that peace and that feeling of security can very quickly slide into boredom. unless you create novelty. And novelty may include just doing different things or traveling, being in different places with your partner, or trying new things together. That is important so that you are seeing your partner in a new schema and they look new and different to you. We just went to Italy last week because my husband wanted to tour automotive factories. So there we were at Lamborghini and Ferrari and Ducati, and it wasn't interesting to me, but it was very exciting. I did lots of video of him and cars. It was very exciting
Mhm.
for me to see him so happy and in this other environment.
Uh, no, you took the word out of my mouth because sometimes it feels I experienced it, and at first it was so unfamiliar for me that it was kind of like boredom, and then it gets to the level of like maybe I'm depressed. Maybe I'm depressed. Maybe I'm
Because
like
the old drug is gone now.
It was so unfamiliar. It's like once you get to that peace level at first, I just want to tell the listeners, it does not feel familiar. It just you feel like you're lost or stuck. I use these words. I thought I was stuck. I thought I was bored. I thought I was like, having this depression. What is wrong with me? And then when it fades down, it's just like kind of you're like free. You're free to be whoever you want. You speak your mind. You're not watching yourself. You're
Well,
not
let's
watching.
talk about the health benefits of having a secure attachment.
Okay.
People with a long-term secure attachment literally live longer, have better health along the way, have much better mental health, and oh yeah, they accumulate more wealth. What two people who are committed to each other and in a secure relationship can achieve together is so much greater than any individual can achieve alone.
By himself. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was. Because I like you, I did both side of it. I was independent. I don't give a fuck. I don't need anybody. I'm good. I can make it on my own. And then I was on the other side that was like, oh my God, like in the beginning, I need you. I need you. I can't be without you. And then you get to that part is like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I don't need those feelings. I'm
Right.
being myself.
Feel safe, and then you can, I call it it's a secure base of which to be a launching pad for you. You can get to be authentic in a good, healthy relationship.
And you learn about the other person in a very grace way. You're not listening to them and you're not watching them like you said your husband being on the Bugatti or Lamborghini. You're just watching him and you're just like mesmerized by how one person have so interest on this stuff. You're learning from it. You're amused by it.
Should. In fact, I always say that, my favorite metaphor for a good, healthy relationship is a Venn diagram, two overlapping circles, right? So you
Yeah.
got one person on one side, one person on the other, and in the center is your relationship. And you have to continue to bring new things into the relationship. A relationship that's like this, completely overlapping one circle, we would call that an enmeshed relationship where nobody can remember whose problem is whose. And at a certain point, it's going to reach a breaking point because one of the individuals wants to soar and figure out who they are.
Yeah.
Just as a relationship like this has no attachment.
Hmm.
Yeah, from the white wall, like that.
Yeah. And also that's one thing that people we talk about the people pleasing. One that avoid themselves and say yes, yes, yes to make the other happy, and it eventually becomes boring. Because in a
Well,
relationship, we have to learn about each other. That's what excitement. Once you look at it from that perspective, that's when it comes so interesting. Like
mhm.
you're your own person, I'm my own person. I learn from you, you learn from me. Wow, you do this. I don't really like that. Things like that. What makes it
And then
exciting
you try sometimes new things together and find your
together.
happiness.
Yeah. So people pleasing is not something that is a good thing. A lot of women out there think that if I say yes, yes, yes to everything, my relationship is going to be good. But unfortunately, no.
Well, when I interviewed all those men for my second book, they certainly didn't marry people pleasers. They married women who had standards and were happy to ask for their needs to be met.
Let's talk about that from your perspective. Can you give it two example of a people pleasing in a relationship and the one that is actually confident and knows values and how to apply in a relationship for our
So
listeners?
when you talk about relationships, remember there are different stages of relationships and different kinds of relationships. I mostly talk about early stage of relationships and
Right.
work because once you get into long-term relationship patterns, we are talking about pretty hard patterns
Right.
that are the system is set. It's very difficult to change unless you go to a licensed couples therapist together who's saying, okay, here's what you got to do. I'm all about creating the system at the beginning that's healthy for both people, right? So if a woman is too available, he calls at 2 in the afternoon and says, hey, I just found out I'm in town tonight. You want to have dinner tonight? She says yes, and she calls her other girlfriends and cancels on them because this guy just flew into town and she can see him tonight. She's lost value in his eyes. She's too available. He doesn't get to work for her, right?
Mhm.
So the one who just says yes, yes, yes to everything from sex to splitting the check to doing the driving, whatever, he's going to devalue. And so then there's another woman he calls at 2 in the afternoon, and she very sweet. She doesn't get mad. She doesn't have to get mad. She likes herself. She likes him. She goes, "Oh my gosh, I wish I'd known. I would so love to have dinner with you, but I've made another commitment." And then he goes, "Oh, well, I'm only in town for one night. Oh, what a disappointment for us. Well, let me know when you're in town again, okay?" And that guy's going to get on a plane so fast and show up within that weekend. You'll see.
Perfect.
Or he'll stay
Yes.
longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, it makes a huge difference.
You just provided him, like, you don't, when you try to get your needs met, I should talk about this because a lot of people who aren't used to having their needs met ask for their needs to be met in a really demanding way. Because what happens is we're uncomfortable, we're even unsure whether we deserve to have our needs met. And so
Mm.
what happens is we get a boundary. There's my boundary, okay? And then they ask something, we go, no. Why do you think I would be available same day? Right? No, no, no. You need to give someone the reward of your higher self, the one who loves him and loves yourself, the one who has standards, the one who says, "Oh my God, we could have had so much fun together. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't." And then they want to get closer to that feeling because you're a kind, loving, empathetic person with clear boundaries. Another example of boundaries early in a relationship is in the early stage of dating. Guys are always trying to figure out a woman's number, right? Because they also have a sexual double standard in the back of their head. So if
Okay.
you're on, they're like, "How many guys you've been with?" And how, and the answer is very simple. The answer is, I hope to get to know you well enough someday to be able to disclose a lot of personal things about me. And that's an invitation for intimacy, an invitation to get closer. But it's also a boundary that says, "Fuck you, I'm not going to tell you,"
Right. Right. Right.
without
Right.
saying it.
That's a script that every woman should write down and memorize it.
No, in my book, The 30-Day Love Detox, I interviewed a number of women. I thought this was interesting. They actually were women in this day and age,
Right.
many of them educated career women, and many of them with no religiosity, who remained virgins until they got married. I wasn't interested in following their pattern. I was interested to know how they said no in a high supply sexual economy when the pressure came on.
Right.
And so I asked them these questions. And one of the questions I asked one of the women who's now married with 2 kids is I said, "What about when men use that pressure tactic where they say, 'Oh, come on. If I don't get it from you, I'm going to have to get it from someone else.'"
Right.
And oh, I loved it when they said that because I would just say, I don't think you can get sex with me from someone else.
Mm.
She knows her value, right?
Yeah.
A second-rate woman, but you're not going to get me.
Yeah. It's just when you think about it too much, you lose yourself over all of that. Once you get your attention out of yourself and you put attention on them, that's when you know, stutter.
If the
It's like you
attention
don't know
is,
what to
how
say.
do I not make him go away?
Yeah.
Right? You ever heard this rule in negotiation? They say you have to have fuck you money to really
Yeah.
negotiate well.
Yeah.
So you have to have fuck you self-esteem,
Self-esteem. Yeah.
knowing that he's going to leave. If he leaves, do the touchdown cheer. You've been saved from a year of pain. Oh my
That's
God,
it.
get it out early. This is great.
It is. It is. Know what you want, go for it. Don't be disappointed. Like you said, one night stand, I'm good. I don't need to know your name. I got mine. Bye.
All done it, right.
You
But
know?
if you're looking for a long-term committed relationship, take nothing less.
Less than that, yeah. And train yourself because we go back negotiate. Love that the negotiation. I always tell my clients, stop negotiating. But what if I do this? What if I text him back? What if I say to him, like, no, I'm not ready? Why are you
Oh, that's not
negotiating?
negotiating, that's analyzing, right? So women spend most of their time trying to analyze a man instead of analyzing themselves as to why his game even turns them on. If you are in a relationship and the primary feeling you have in a relationship is confusion, get out. That's not love. You can try to simply clarify your confusion by asking him a clear question. What are we? Or why don't you call more often? And if you don't get the answer you want, move on. Confusion is how they keep you in situationships. They breadcrumb you with little things and you hang out trying to overanalyze him instead of, why am I turned on by this lack of care?
Now I'm going to ask you a question because I know our listeners are thinking about it right now because I know my listeners so well. What if somebody says to you that, Wendy, like I hang out with this guy for a couple of months and I did everything that I was not supposed to do. I didn't listen to you first. Your episode came in later. I wish I would have listened to this first before I did. And we kind of went on our way. And now that I know what I want, how can I get him back? Or how, when we do get back together, how can I fix this damage?
So you're saying you were in a situationship. This person, this hypothetical person, dated somebody for a few months, had sex before asking for exclusivity. It burned itself out within a few months. And
And
now
now,
you know the game. And this was a great guy who potentially, there's only one way to see if he's open to emotional intimacy. You call him and you apologize. And you say, I am so sorry. We got off on the wrong foot. That is not me. I am really not a player chick. I had sex with you too fast. I feel bad about it because I really think you're great husband material. Should we try something different this time? And if he runs, do the touchdown cheer, do the touchdown cheer. And if he doesn't, then maybe there's a chance. You got to lead with intimacy.
right,
You know, on
right.
my very first coffee date, and I always say, ladies, don't have a dinner date for a first date. Never, never,
Oh my
never.
God.
Always a coffee date. Because then you can, it's a total stranger. You're going to really reward somebody with 2 hours of your important time. Queen, you don't deserve, a stranger doesn't deserve 2 hours of your time. You do for a quick 20-minute coffee, and then later decide if you want to date them.
Mm.
So we were on our little coffee date, and I decided to say to my now husband, uh, hey, you know, we could sit here telling each other just how fabulous we are, but why don't we start by telling each other a story of why we think we're completely undateable? And he went, okay, you go first. And so I did. I shared an intimate story, and then he shared an intimate story, and our relationship began with an intimate disclosure. It could go nowhere else but closeness after that.
I was gonna say that is a perfect way to start. Yes. The humility, the transparency, the
Yeah,
openness, you know?
from the
Love,
beginning.
love that. Yeah. You have to be so confident to do that.
Yeah.
You have to know yourself a lot and be very confident of yourself to
And
say
he
something.
started his story with, you know, I usually tell people this on like the third date. And I'm like, yeah, let's start with the first coffee. Let's get it out of
That's
the way.
right.
Everyone's got something where they feel like, I'm not going to be a good match for most people because of this or that. Everybody has something. And that's what
Yeah.
intimacy is about, learning how to accept the flaws in our lovers.
Yeah. My advice is always for them to ask the question, like, what are we doing? Like, what is this? Like, is this gonna go somewhere, or are you just looking for something? I always tell my clients, like, put
Nobody
all
knows in a first coffee, right? So on a first coffee date, a woman may be looking for a long-term relationship. A guy, when he's driving to meet a new woman for the first time, he literally is thinking in his head, hmm, am I going to meet my wife or am I going to get to have sex?
yeah,
He doesn't know until he spends time. He needs the visual reference. So it's way too early on a first coffee to say, what are you looking for? Because they're going to lie, right? The best
right.
way for men to obtain a short-term relationship is to pretend they're looking for a long-term relationship.
Mm. But for a woman to go with that intention, your physical movement, your face impression, your vocabulary, it's kind of self-explanatory. They know, even though you don't say it.
It is so different. First of all, if you're going to look for a short-term relationship, again, perfectly okay. Dress as sexy as you possibly can. Okay.
Right, right.
When he brings up sex in the first date, go there. Uh, if you're looking for a long-term relationship, don't dress overtly sexy, dress kind of classy. And when he brings up sex, go, probably not a good conversation for a first date.
Yeah,
All you do, have a
yeah.
boundary.
I always did the thing that I watched what I say. I kind of like with my words. Like I read between the lines and then don't bring a subject that I don't want to talk about. So I was very cautious of that all the time.
On a first date.
Like, and at first, not like so much first date, but like second or whatever. And I can also read people's energy and their body language and their face impression because I had a lot of time and I did study that. So for the first time, I knew what you're about. And I would change the conversation. Okay, you just want to have sex. So you're
Yeah,
cute, I guess.
you have good intuition.
Yeah, I do. I really do because I practice it so much. So now I can tell. Sometimes it's annoying because when I see people, I see their energy, I see the whole thing, and I'm like, okay, just I want to get to know them, but I already intuitively I know them. So
Mhm.
here's a question that says that is it true that we marry our parents?
Yes. Or some piece of them, definitely. And sometimes it's a good thing. Like I remember my dad used to have this habit when he and my mom would be in stores together and he would wander off to the hardware department and she was over in the ladies' clothing. He used to clear his throat in a certain distinct thing. And I always thought, is his throat clogged? What's going on? But she told me later it was his little echo and call to let her know what aisle he was in. And that was just his way, right? And like a few weeks ago, I was in a store and I couldn't find Julio, and there he cleared his throat. And I swear it was like the exact same tone as my dad, exactly. And I was
Oh
like,
my
oh
God.
my God, I married my dad.
Oh,
And he married a mouthy woman. Like, I love my new stepmother. She's great. She's a strong, ballsy single mom who raised boys. And I'm like, he
you
said,
like that?
I love big mouth women, he says. So yeah, we do a part of our picker is looking for in heterosexual relationships a version of our opposite gender parent.
Oh, God bless people that they don't like their mom and dad. Then,
Well, that's where the attachment injuries come, right? And that's what you need to work through in therapy. Yeah, because
oh
if you
yeah.
had abusive parents and you're choosing that, that's a problem.
Oh my God. I was hoping that you would say no to that because I love
Mm.
my father, but he wasn't really a good husband.
Hmm.
He was a yes person. He was a yes, 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 yes person.
So you
Funny.
were looking for someone with more boundaries to protect you.
More like my mom was really like, my mom was like, you had a very big personality.
Mhm.
She had a very big, open personality, very easy to talk to, things like that. My dad was kind of like on a shy side and quiet and always used to say yes. So, yeah, I end up with a couple of guys like that.
Hmm.
Yeah. But once I recognized, I was like, okay, that's not good. Let's just not do that. Here we go. How do I talk about boundaries without sending or pushing them away?
So here's the thing, boundaries aren't something that you talk about, it's something you do. And
Mm,
a boundary is not a boundary unless it has a consequence. A boundary shouldn't be a threat, right? A boundary isn't like, if you don't call me, I'm just going to go out with other people. That's not a boundary, right?
mm,
A boundary is, hey, I'd like to be exclusive. Is that fine with you?
mm,
Or I'd like to receive I think we should have a check-in call every day now that we're exclusive. And if the person doesn't do it, you're not trying to get them to behave. You're trying to figure out what you can tolerate and what the consequence is going to be. And so
mm,
it may be breaking up with the person. And so boundaries are not about trying to get someone to respect your boundaries and behave in a good way. Boundaries are a nice little fence you put around yourself. And when someone crosses it, you close that gate. That's what a boundary is. So it's not something you talk about. It's not like, well, let's talk about what my boundaries are and what your boundaries are. It's more like um, you let people know what you'll tolerate or not. And when they don't, you move along.
mm,
Decide what the consequence is. But you must have, it's like, let's say you have a 3-year-old child who's screaming for cookies before dinner, right? And you say, no, 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 we don't have cookies before dinner. They're
mm.
still going to go into that cookie jar and try because a boundary is not a boundary until you take the cookie jar and put it up on top of the fridge in a cupboard that you,
Yeah.
right? So you have to set up a consequence for every behavior you want.
Mm. I give example of that. I say if they tell you that I'm coming this time picking you up and then they're an hour late, instead of saying yelling and screaming, just say no, I'm good. We're not going now. Why? Just, time passed. Just get back in your pajamas and put your favorite show and just sit there. And no, the date is done. Like you
I
said.
I heard an interesting story recently. Um, Someone met a young man, 24 years old, met a girl at a party
Mhm.
and thought she was kinda interesting, got her phone number, put her phone number away in his pocket, and got busy working and doing stuff, and he didn't call her for 2 weeks, and he called her and said, "Hi, remember I met you at that party a couple weeks ago? I'm wondering if you wanna go out sometime?" And she said, I'm sorry that you took too long. That shows me you're not that interested." That's
That's
a
a boundary.
that's a
That's a
boundary.
yeah.
And she said it really sweetly, "Oh, I'm so sorry you missed your opportunity. You took too long."
Yeah, I feel like when it comes from the anger, you don't mean it. You're just doing it because
Right.
you have to,
You
not
don't mean
because you want to.
you don't trust that you deserve to have your boundaries met.
Correct. Correct.
Be sweet about it. And you have to tolerate the fact that maybe a good guy's disappearing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Remember, you
That's
gotta
okay.
have fuck you self-confidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. Love that. When should I talk about wanting to get married or having kids?
Oh, from the get-go. It should be in your profile. Like, don't lie. Isn't that
Mm.
what are you trying to do? Lead somebody into thinking it's a short-term relationship, it's sex, but oh, by the way, I wanna have a baby next week. That is so unfair. From the beginning, you could put in your profile, "Looking forward to auditioning the man who will be my husband. I'm so excited to have a great family someday." What's wrong with saying that? It's a truth.
Some people don't. They're like, I know, maybe
If
yes,
there are
no.
guys out there who want short-term relationships, they'll be like, "Ugh, I'm not calling her." Yay! You don't have to you have fewer to weed through.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do people shut down instead of talking things through?
Uh, 2 reasons. One is they learned that from I think you're saying during conflict,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
They learned that in their family of origin, that there was no arguing in public, so they don't see how it's done. There was no modeling of the repair that comes afterwards. They if they tried to speak up and argue back, their parents said, "You be quiet, you're a kid, go to your room." They were not
Mm.
allowed to express, and so they have to learn new patterns, and it's possible at any stage of the lifespan to learn new ways of relating. Those are the relationship skills I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think of people that are like always saying that, Wendy, like, I'm working on myself. I don't have time to go on a date or go out and find somebody. I'm working on myself. They've been taking time to doing that, but yet they also want love and compassion and somebody in their life. What
This
would
is a
you?
great question. You have some very great questions today. Um, Taking time to work on yourself isn't growing, it's avoiding. Nobody can grow sitting on a mountain meditating or going to a therapist's office forever without trying to engage with others. Relationships are a gymnasium for your mind. You need something to push against to get stronger. If you go to the gym and just watch other people work out, does that help you get in shape? No, to get in relation shape, you've got to date. And yes, you might stay in therapy and have your therapist as your wing woman or wingman telling you, okay, so that probably wasn't the right guy or girl or whatever, or maybe you shouldn't have said that. And that's how you learn. You do it through
Mm,
trial and error. You don't
yeah.
do it by saying, I'm gonna sit and work on myself and hum and work out and meditate. And that's not gonna help you in a
Because that was
relationship.
a trend for a little bit. It was a trend. Everybody was saying that I'm working on myself. I need some time for myself. The reason my relationships are bad because
Come
of
out of a bad relationship and you need some time to grieve, that's different.
that's different.
I'm not telling people that they should, get back on that horse and ride it the next week just after they broke up from a 10-year relationship.
Mm,
There is grieving time that needs to happen, and you need to attend to the other things in your life. So relationships are um, when you're in a relationship, you're only half a brain. Some other person does half the thinking, half the work, half the labor, half the emotional work, etc. And when they leave, or when you leave them, your neurotransmitters literally have to grow to take over the areas of their life that your partner contributed to. So there
mm,
is this time of becoming whole again. People use that term, I need to become whole again. And what they're really doing is becoming independent so that they can bring a whole person into the next relationship. But that is way different than sitting around forever, just going to the gym and meditating and hoping that you'll get smarter and stronger about relationship dynamics. For that, you got to practice.
yeah. Yeah. And people don't take themselves seriously to go out there and do this sometimes because they're too fearful. I'm a mother, so I always say, well, yeah, you remember when you're pregnant, like you read all these books and everything, and once the baby comes in, that all goes out the window. No, I don't know. You have to, everything that you thought it would be, just the opposite. You learn as you have the baby. Everything you think that I'm going to be bad, no, you're going to learn so fast by practicing hands on, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people will lean toward instinct, and if you've come from healthy parents, that's probably a good thing. But for those who have had some unhealthy experiences, listening to parenting experts and trying something different is probably a good thing.
Good idea. How do I know if I'm being love bombarded or genuinely being loved?
What's your stomach saying? If you're asking the question, you're probably being love bombed. It's not reciprocal. Someone said we were talking about parenting, and someone asked me once, "Should I have a nanny cam in my house? I'm a little worried about my nanny. Should I put a camera in there?" I'm like, "If you have to ask the question, you need to fire the nanny.
You should fire the nanny.
Stomach's telling you something."
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. This was so amazing, Wendy.
Oh,
Thank you so much for taking your time and
yeah,
answering these questions and simplifying it to people, to our listeners that are listening, because this is the everyday question that a lot of these young men and women are walking around with, and they don't have the answer. And they keep saying, like you said, they're negotiating or analyzing or doing all of that. So you made it so easy and clear.
thank you. Thank you.